Just to make one or two quick announcements though. On Tuesday next week, the Girl Guides will be having a cookie sale. The Girl Guides, and we know that the Girl Guides, of course, does a great job in trying to keep our teenage girls, well, even before they get to teenagers. I think they start at 4 or 5, trying to get them involved in something which is constructive and positive. So I would encourage you to support the Girl Guides on Tuesday next week, when they will be selling their cookies in sets of $5 and $10. You can get a set for $5 or for $10, or you can just make a contribution if you don't wish to purchase any of the cookies. They'll be outside Royal Bank as of 9 o'clock on Tuesday coming, and they'll be there until about 12 midday or perhaps 12:30. I want to encourage you now to make sure you turn up on Tuesday and support the Girl Guides. I know they did wonders for a number of my students whose parents I suggested that they send their daughters to that particular organization. All right. Yesterday was Human Rights Day. We would have liked to talk a little bit about human rights yesterday if we were able to meet, but we know that we had the launch of the solar farm project, and that took precedence over Franklin Candid. Today, however, we have Marlene with us. Marlene, welcome to Franklin Candid, and tell us what you want to share with us today, please.
Thank you, Michael Blake, for having me on. Finally, we've been trying to get on this program for, I would say, over the past week. We've been on again, off again, and by the grace of Yah, we're here today. Correct. On the original date I was to meet with you. Thanks for this opportunity to share what we've been doing at St. Kitts Department of Culture, and also in collaboration with Nevis Historical Society and Nevis Cultural Development Foundation. We started a project on intangible cultural heritage. We actually launched it April 29th, 2019. And St. Kitts and Nevis was the recipient of a fund, the ICH Fund from Unesco, which deals with intangible cultural heritage, and our project was approved for $442,000 US to conduct a 2-year activity or 2-year project to sensitize people about intangible cultural heritage, and also to do an assessment of St. Kitts and Nevis and see what ICH exists. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we were at with the project. We're actually near the end of it, and the objective of the project was to build capacity here in St. Kitts and Nevis to be able to do the research and to assess what ICH exists. And ICH is the short form for Intangible Cultural Heritage. So you might ask, what does ICH mean? And it's a big name for something that we've been doing for years and years. When you look at our cultural traditions, I'll use the example of folklore. Masquerade, very well known. Masquerade, bull, makajumbi, for example. The traditional foods that you eat, and the practices of craft. These are some of the examples of ICH, intangible cultural heritage, the art forms and things that the community holds sacred.
So is there a difference between intangible cultural heritage and tangible cultural heritage? The examples you just cited are examples or instances of intangible cultural heritage.
That's correct.
So would there be a distinction between, or is there such a thing as tangible cultural heritage, for example? Or not necessarily?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tangible cultural heritage or tangible heritage is built heritage. It's the heritage sites, the buildings, the structures.
Brimstone Hill.
Brimstone Hill, the old houses, the sugar stacks, and things of that nature. When you're speaking about intangible cultural heritage, at those heritage sites, there would be things or practices or human activity that would have gone on at those heritage sites. We refer to that as ICH.
Right, things which you cannot literally touch or feel.
Yeah.
Okay, but they cannot be held, but they are lovely to behold.
Absolutely.
Right.
And again, just for our listeners, I'm going to refer to the Masquerade.
Yes.
The Masquerade is loved by everyone here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
You can say
From
it
very
again.
young to very old, you would have grown up with it. It's become a tradition of the Kittitian and Navajo people. You recognize the costume, the performance, and the dance.
just last week I made the point I cannot ever have too much of masquerades. I'm sorry.
Right.
Neither the dancing nor the music.
This is something that truly, every Kitchen division knows.
Yeah.
This is part of your heritage, part of
Okay.
your cultural tradition. So ICH, in terms of that, would be the dances.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of dances do you do for the masquerade?
Right.
What type of music is played when the masquerade is being performed? The tangible aspect of masquerade is the physical costume itself.
The musical instruments.
Yes, the ICH for the costume would be how do you make the costume? What pieces make up the costume? So when we speak about ICH, and it's really just a term for what the community has been doing already in terms of preserving it and safeguarding it.
Right.
People in the community, nobody has gone and said, okay, you have to perform masquerade now, you have to play that. For the love of the art form, individuals in the community of St. Kitts and Nevis say, I want to carry that tradition. And the groups that exist from the early days, they teach the next generation.
Okay.
And therefore it becomes a tradition.
Of course.
So
Right.
this convention, UNESCO's 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Cultural Heritage, St. Kitts and Nevis signed on to in April 2016 and became a state party signed to that convention.
Okay.
And so since the signing of that convention, we've implemented this 2 years project to understand better how we can utilize this convention to safeguard St. Kitts and Nevis ICH. So the terminology ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage, is something that has come from, by definition, from the convention. But we've been doing it naturally, keeping traditions alive. Like I said, there are different domains within ICH. It's not just performance that can be preserved. In the convention, it could be the performing arts, it can be craft, it can be nature in the universe, so herbal medicines, herbal remedies.
Okay.
As I mentioned before, it's not just the practice of the dance or the art form,
Right.
but it's also the items that you use, the crafts that are made.
And that would include superstitions and beliefs and all of that.
Well, I wouldn't say superstitions, but
Okay.
I would refer to customs.
Okay.
For example, we don't have an indigenous population here anymore. The Kalinago and the Caribs, we know the history of
Thanks
them
to the
being
Europeans.
annihilating them. Yes, but I'll use that as an example. Is that if those group of people were still here today and they have customs and traditions that they practice and that they hold sacred to them, then that would be ICH. The rituals, the things that they do, etc.
Okay, Marin, I know you have a lot to share with us, but do you think that today, 2020, especially given the what's your position on that?
Okay, well,
are you hopeful that
Yeah.
that we have a subset or set of persons out there who really would want to claim ownership of ICH and who are interested in preserving it and ensuring that we benefit from it?
Well, first of all, I'll say that the illusion of COVID has nothing to do with culture, has nothing to do with the existence of cultural traditions that are.
No, I want to
that-
COVID in the sense
yeah.
that people might be more focused now on COVID,
Yeah.
coping with it and escaping
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Yes, the whole world is looking at the illusion of COVID and being distracted. Yes.
Okay,
But
you
in
refer
ter-
to it as the delusion. No, go ahead.
But in terms of culture, this is part of our life. There are people out there who belong to different masquerade groups. There are cultural food traditions. Are you going to stop cooking the food that you cook traditionally because COVID is here? No. Traditions, customs, these are things that you're doing already. The fact that
almost subconsciously.
yeah, automatically, because these are things that people in the community, petitions and division do, and it's a part of their life. The same way how you have carnival, and you've got the folklore troops and traditions, you've got the string band music, you have the instruments that you use in string band, and these are things that are a part of petition and division culture.
Okay.
It's not being done because of the convention. These things exist already, and you've learned them from your forefathers come down. And they're things that, I'm sure you, Mr. Blake, when you were young, did your family take you to see folklore and masquerade and clown and makajambi. Do you remember that from when you were little?
Of course.
So that is something that you've grown up knowing, and you have children. Have you exposed them to that?
You bet. In fact, I signed my son up to Masquerade troupe early o'clock.
Okay, so
Definitely. He was a part of Alan's Masquerade and then Sill's Masquerade.
right. So I'm not going to ask you your age, but I am going to say that that is a tradition. That's a tradition that most families have and appreciate. And the key with tradition and custom is it comes from the community. The love of the art form, something that's being handed down by your ancestors and forefathers, and something that you hold dear to you, have fond memories, and continue practicing it. Traditions would not be alive unless people in the community perform them and
right,
engage
exactly.
in them,
Yeah.
right? So the convention is just something that's come after that. The convention is giving a framework in which to identify the traditional customs of state parties that sign on to it in order to safeguard it so it doesn't disappear. I'll give you an example. In St. Kitts, I'll give you an example. I'm going to use folklore because it's very, everybody is familiar with folklore and could relate to probably what I'm saying. If we have actors, makajambi, masquerade, clown, bull. Out of those folklore groups, which one do you think has the most participation, the most national groups performing?
Masquerade, easily.
Okay, which one has the least?
I would say the actors.
Okay, so that's in your observation, just
Yeah.
generally as a citizen
right,
of the country.
And that's a superficial kind of response. by the way.
Right, right. So you identify the actors. Now, if the people who make up the actors group decide to stop, then that means that the folklore ends.
Well,
Does it not?
It was moribund. It wasn't dead, but it was moribund for a while. In other words, there were a number of years when consecutive years when there were no actors on the road.
Okay.
So thank God for whoever it was whose input and involvement resurrected that.
Okay, absolutely. So the reference I'm using that as a reference to say that if we don't do something to safeguard that folklore, that art form of the actors in particular, it could die.
Yes.
So how do you safeguard something like that? The people that keep it alive in the community, that perform and play actors, instead of hoping that they pass on their knowledge and their experience and teach the next generation, Department of Culture gets involved to dialogue with them and to encourage them to do workshops.
And empower them.
And empower them to train the next generation. And if we don't do that, it could just die. Another example is the school system, the education system. Because it's a traditional custom that people love and the community loves, but it's not something that's written into the curriculum. So from the little children in primary school come up to teenagers and adults, you're not taught about your history. You're not taught about your African history. You're not taught about the local traditions and customs. So if the young generation doesn't know about their culture, their heritage, and they're learning European culture, then it could die. It could die.
Clearly.
Right? So some of the involvement that we do at Department of Culture is to meet and have discussions with the community to find out what are the traditions and customs that you hold dear, and how can we work with you to preserve it, to safeguard it. What initiatives can we do? What interjections or can we make?
Interventions.
Thank you. Can we make? So we're just trying to safeguard the ICH that is important to people in the community.
Okay.
And that's what this 2-year project has been. We had to sensitize. We at Culture can't do this. We can't sit in our office and say, okay, we're going to decide that these are the ICH elements. These are the things that petitions and divisions hold dear to their heart, and then we're going to safeguard them. We have to do research. We have to go into the community and talk to people to find out how they feel. What do you think is important? What should be safeguarded? What should we save? And then work with them to put, to put a plan together.
Put some structure in place.
Yeah, how do we work towards safeguarding it? If it means that we need more training, and we have to hold workshops, you know, if it's give me a traditional food, Katition traditional food that you would consider traditional.
Rice and chicken.
Oh, what? Okay, maybe I'll give you an example.
No, I'm not sure if I follow you. Maybe I'm lost there.
Okay, let's look at the national dish.
Yes.
Right, national dish, saltfish. Right.
Yeah.
I know you.
I have
If
an
you
issue with
can't,
that.
I know it's Radio Land. If you can't see his face, he's kind of cringing up. Right? That's
I've
another
always had
show,
an issue with that.
and that's debatable, right?
Absolutely.
But the point that I'm making.
I think that needs to be revisited, by the way.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
another show, right?
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is, what is something that you cook traditionally, like maybe I don't know during Easter, for example.
Conkies.
Okay, let's use conky as an
Cassava
example.
bread.
Cassava. Okay, good. You get into my Caribbean roots now. This is what we're talking about, right? So these kinds of I'm preparing that kind of food, preparing conky, right?
Yeah.
If your mother, auntie, grandma doesn't teach you how to make it, doesn't teach the girls in the family how to make it, or the boys in the family how to make it, when they get older and have children, they're not going to know how to make it. And this is something that is a tradition, a cultural tradition, that if you don't pass it on, it will die. Mistake, 2021.
Yeah.
And it's had a number of different phases. The first phase was to seize, and he was a representative of UNESCO Ich that came to St. Kitts and Nevis and met with us, not just Department of Culture, but also stakeholders in the cultural community, and explained about the convention and how we could utilize the convention to organize nationally our ICH.
Okay.
So it was a sensitization to answer questions about the convention and help us to understand it better. And as I mentioned, the convention itself has 5 different domains. So when we're looking at ICH, it has, we look at it in the terms of oral traditions and expressions, performing arts, social practices, rituals and festive events, knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, and traditional craftsmanship.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So if we look at our culture in those 5 different domains, then we approach it as such. And you can see that when we look at performing arts, as I mentioned before, you're looking at the art form itself. When you're looking at traditional craftsmanship, you're looking at the craft or the accessories that go along with that, the clothing. When you're looking at knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, you're looking at herbal remedies. Traditional herbs and foods and things of that nature. So treatments. Right. So the convention has just given us a structure in which to define and identify the culture that exists. So we had a sensitization here in St. Kitts and in Nevis, and then the next step was to train people with how to do the research. Our ultimate goal was to find out what ICH, do an assessment and identify ICH elements in both St. Kitts and Nevis. So the group of people is about 50 people, 30 in St. Kitts, 20 in Nevis, who we've trained through all of the phases, the sensitization, and then how to use how to conduct interviews. We purchase equipment. Digital cameras.
How did you identify those 50 persons?
How do we identify them?
Yeah.
Basically, people from different sectors of society. People from the community, people in culture, people in history.
So was it volunteer? They were invited to volunteer? Or
Yes.
They would not necessarily have had to have a track record of involvement in culture?
No. Just community stakeholders.
Okay.
People that have an interest in culture, in preserving it, in safeguarding it.
Right.
People in the museum, St. Christopher National Trust, culture, all different aspects of society, different ages. We had some young adults, we had some students, and we did a wide cross section: men, women, people who are in, people who do craft, people who perform, and we spoke to them about it, invited them to learn about ICH. And what we tried to do was to engage them in continuing the process. The same people who we sensitized, we wanted to train them as well so that they're equipped. Because remember, the project is to build capacity to do the work.
Exactly.
So they were trained with how to handle digital cameras, to record with an audio recorder, conduct interviews, and then after that, which is the stage that we're at now, is we actually sent them out. We had teams in St. Kitts, a team of 10 in St. Kitts and a team of 3 in Nevis, that comprised of a coordinator, a videographer, and an interviewer. And we sent these teams out into the community, and they actually identified ICH that existed within their zone, because in St. Kitts we broke it into zones, so that we wouldn't have people people just working in one area. So we covered like the whole country by breaking it down in zones and placing the teams within their communities. We had 10 teams in St. Kitts, and actually the results that we got
and
were
each team comprises how many persons?
3 people.
3 persons.
Yeah, 3 people.
So there was just one team in Nevis then?
No, there were 3 teams in Nevis.
Oh, 3 teams.
3
of 3
teams
persons
of
each.
3 persons each.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And there was actually more. However, people's availability to follow the course all the way through were a bit challenging. But still, the results that we got were very interesting and very telling. We found in St. Kitts, I think there were 14 different elements. Well, I'll share what we did discover.
Sure.
In one of the areas, the actors.
Yeah.
It's ironic that you mentioned it, and
You
I didn't tip you off on that. You just volunteered that.
You said that.
The actors, storytelling, broom making.
Boom making.
Okay, Sunday school.
Boom making. Yeah, go ahead.
David and Goliath. Mummies. Giant in despair. Calabash utensils. Parched nuts. Making of bread. Cassava bread making. Mobby bear. Storytelling. This is what was discovered. As I said to you, I can't sit at my desk, nor would I ever come up with this list without consulting with the community.
Exactly.
That's this is how
that's
we do
action,
it.
field research.
Absolutely. So, and again, this is not exhaustive nor conclusive. It's just we're just experimenting. We're just saying, what are we going to find? And the importance of this is the community told us. People in the community told us that these things were important to them, and they didn't want them to die out. So this is the starting
And they're
point.
concerned of their state of affairs at the moment.
Absolutely.
Right. They're not as vibrant as they ought to be.
Right.
I think that is implied here.
Yeah, they're concerned that these art forms, these practices, we're losing them.
Right. That's the idea.
And they're important, and we should preserve them.
Yeah, boom making. Come to think of it, when was the last time I saw somebody offering locally crafted booms?
Well,
we buy these foolishness in supermarkets which don't work well, which don't last long, and cost so much. When in fact
and are not natural fibers.
Why doesn't STEP consider resuscitating, reviving that particular art form there? Boom making.
Well, you can put it out there. I don't know if they'll take up the challenge.
Yeah, because I remember growing up, all of our booms, if they weren't made by hand from various grasses and so on, they were bought from individuals going around selling locally made booms.
Yeah, and so
and they speak better. They speak better. They last longer.
Thanks for the plug. I love that. The broom maker will be happy. In Nevis, they focused on vernacular houses, Nevis pottery, and cactus. Right?
Yeah.
So we're very excited with the results thus far, because from the training, people from the community who were trained, they gained new skill sets on how to operate camera, interview, conduct, go into the community, do the research, document it.
Right.
They took photos, they took videos, and they delivered that to
y'all.
Department of Culture in St. Kitts and in Nevis.
So what is the next? What is the Department of Culture expecting now to do with this result? To do with these findings?
Okay, well, what we are doing, as a part of the project, we purchased software that's called Past Perfect. It's a museum software, but we've adapted it for our purposes. After the researchers come in, this information is, as we speak, being entered into the software. We'll be able to print the results of the research. So, for example, you should be able to see a sheet on broom making with pictures of the process, with the background information as to how it's made, where you get the materials from,
raw materials,
and history about broom making. You'll see some video of the process, And you'll also, this information, we're working on a website so that it'll be online and you'll be able to go to the website for St. Kitts and Nevis ICH. And these 14 elements in St. Kitts and the 3 in Nevis will be a part of this national list on the website.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to click on it and watch the video. As someone in the community, watch the video, read the information to the research, and
yeah, but I'm sorry to hear something more concrete, more tangible, if you wish, in terms of what the Department of Culture intends to do to ensure that these move from a state of moribundi, of being
to present us with this beautiful logo.
It does look beautiful.
Which really represents a sense of community. You're actually getting a first peek and preview of it here.
Yeah, why not? Your own Frank and Candid.
Right? And so basically, even though there's 2 islands, 1 federation, 1 country, St. Kitts and Nevis, we've taken the approach that we are working together. So the website is a combined effort between both St. Kitts Secretariat and Nevis Secretariat. They'll be contributing to the website, and St. Kitts will be contributing to the website. So it'll be referred to as the ICH Secretariat St. Kitts and Nevis Living Heritage.
Nice.
Okay?
Nice.
And actually recently, Patrick Howell, who is the manager of the Research and Documentation Unit in Nevis Cultural Development Foundation, he has recently been appointed the new focal point for the ICH project.
In the Federation?
In Nevis.
Oh, in Nevis,
yeah.
okay.
So I'm the lead focal point, and he's
Right,
the secondary
okay.
focal point.
Right.
Just so that everyone knows there's somebody on the ground who you can contact and speak to about
That's
ICH.
important.
And the original person who was the focal point was Pauline Ngunjuri, who is formerly the executive director of
very
Nevis
well.
Historical and
Is she still
Conservation
in Nevis?
Society. I think she's off island currently.
Okay.
Hence the need to.
She's from Kenya, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice lady.
But the project was written by her in Nevis and written by me in St. Kitts, and we combine the efforts together so that we can move forward as one. So we're very, very pleased to to get the support of the government in terms of establishing the ICH Secretariat offices. So I want to let you know the continuity, the continuance of this after
there.
April 1st is there. We're working on establishing the structure in the ICH Secretariat. So there's a manager, there's an archive officer, and there's a documentalist who can deal with the media. So the long-term goal, we have these 14 elements and 3 in Nevis, is to present it to our respective ministers. And once they endorse it, present it to Cabinet. Hopefully Cabinet and the Prime Minister will look at these elements, and out of the elements say, yeah, we agree that, okay, Masquerade, one of the ICH elements, should become national, so that St. Kitts and Nevis should be known internationally that they have Masquerade as an ICH element.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you the benefits of that. Because once it's endorsed by the country, then we can actually fill out a form for UNESCO to have it subscribed to. There's a process, but once the country agrees that they want to be known for the ICH element Masquerade, we can get it on a representative list. We can submit it to UNESCO for consideration, and then they would review it with their intergovernmental committee for ICH. And if that gets accepted and approved, because obviously you have to present the history, everything that was spoken about. And if they agree, then it's a very good marketing opportunity for the nation
Of course.
to be known for that. And there's you could even go further. I'm going to use the actors for example.
The actors, yeah.
Yeah, as an example.
Sure.
The actors originated in St. Peter's, Monkey Hill. There's a history behind it concerning Duponsi and the Governor General back in the day.
Of course, yeah.
And there's actually a heritage site or ruins still there of where the Duponsi's chateau stands.
Of course, definitely.
If
Duponsi.
Right, if the actors as an ICH element were endorsed and accepted, okay, you could actually brand St. Peter's. You could brand Monkey Hill. You could put up signage that says home to the actors. And that's a benefit for the people in the community that live in that area. If they're so inspired to create crafts
Wow.
locally. If they're so inspired, people with skills that give guided tours might say, okay, now I'm going to give a guided tour about the history of the actors in the chateau.
Now, do you mind
If you have people, sorry to cut you, but if you have
No problem.
people who, I mean, sky's the limit. I can't even imagine. I don't know what exists there, but the creativity of the people in the community to come up with things that support and promote the fact that they live in a neighborhood where the historic actors was created. It brings wealth into their community and they should benefit. So for tourism now, you can promote, you know, tour guides can take people up there and say, you know, this is the community where the actors originated. This is our national ICH element. And
I remember as you enter Atlanta in the United States, for example, big signage loudly and proudly proclaim home of the Braves.
okay.
Welcome to Atlanta, home of the Braves, and so on, you know. So I guess it has happened in St. Kitts. Now, I believe that you've whetted some people's appetite for involvement in this thing. The question is, how do they, if they wish to volunteer their services, how do they get involved in helping to preserve ICH, for example? Tell the audience.
Well, first and foremost, if you you know, living in your community and you're passionate about an element that exists,
Right.
and you're the person that has the skill, is practicing it, and you want to keep it alive, contact us and express that interest.
Yeah, but suppose the person doesn't necessarily have that skill or wishes to hone that skill as opposed to already expressing it. The individual, I'm thinking of persons who meet me sometimes and say, hey, I heard your speaker or your guest talk about so-and-so, and it interests me, it piques my interest. How can I get involved? And so I have to direct them to the individual. So I'm asking you now if there are persons out there who I'm sure there are persons who love this and they would want to get involved. And by the way, I had some of that after you were here the last time.
Okay.
Can they come and have an audience with you?
Absolutely.
And then you can investigate it further.
Absolutely.
And see in which areas their particular
interest.
level of interest and expertise can be.
And it also might
employed.
be, as you rightfully said, somebody in the community might identify that, oh, Mr. Brown.
Right.
Mr. Brown has this skill, and he makes banjos for the string band. He's like 80-something.
Right.
And Mr. Brown's just in his little studio making the banjo, you know. But someone in the community recognizes that this is a dying art form and we need to preserve it.
Yeah.
And they have a relationship with Mr. Brown. And they speak to Mr. Brown and say, Mr. Brown, are you having classes to teach people how to do this art form? You know, he might say yes, he might say no, he might say he doesn't want to, you know, but that's where it begins. That, like, if you have an interest, the thing is, we cannot keep an element alive unless the community, someone in the community is already doing it.
Right.
We're trying to safeguard it so it doesn't die out.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense somebody coming to us and say, you know, I've always thought that this should be preserved and nobody's doing it. Because unless you, the community member, is doing it, it's not going to live.
No,
like we can't. When you come to us and give us these suggestions, it doesn't mean that Department of Culture is gonna like have money there to start doing all these workshops and training.
I was just about to ask you that point.
That's why I said at the beginning, it stays alive with the people in the community. If people in the community decided to not dance Masquerade, everybody, it's done. You know, so this is what I'm talking about. It's not ICH is not something for Department of Culture to keep alive. No.
The Department of Culture alone, right?
Right. We're giving our support and guidance on how we could go about safeguarding it. We're communicating with the community. But if there's nobody in the community keeping it alive, there's nowhere to go.
No.
We can't keep it alive. The person doing it has to...
The actual practitioners.
Has to be practicing it.
Yeah. But you did speak of having a grant or something of $99,000 or something to that effect.
Yes.
If an individual, for example, wants to get involved or return to involvement in broom making, is there a facility as part of that fund that can advance him $100,000 towards establishing himself or re-establishing himself? That's the question I want to ask.
Well, let me put it this way. The Unesco Ich Fund is directly the result of the 2003 Convention for Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage. That was, we submitted an application with our project proposal, and you can get the forms online or you can review. and they don't meet every day. They meet like maybe 2 or 3 times a year,
Yeah,
and they have to
necessary.
review it. And because it's that figure of money, it takes a while to get a response. But what could happen, and the thing is, an individual can't write for the funding because the UNESCO as deals with organizations,
right?
right?
It's the international
So because there's a Department of Culture, a Ministry of Culture, you would come to us and we would collaborate, because what
Right.
happens with UNESCO is they want to know that it's an established institution, proper business, proper accounting system,
Right.
management of money, et cetera, et cetera. So in collaboration with the Department of Culture, and this is what we're trying to do, we want to be able to write another request. And because we've gone this far with where we're at, we've done an assessment, and we've discovered from our research that, okay, from these elements that we found, there needs to be training workshops and things like that. So we're working with people we're going to be working with the people in the community to map how do we safeguard it, and if training is what it requires, let's build a training program,
Exactly,
let's
yeah.
put a budget to it, and then collectively we might find that, okay, we want to do a training workshop on broom making, the actors, the making of bread. This we go to the tradition bearers, because they're the ones who are going to be teaching it, and we put together the program. Is it going to be 1 week, 2 week? How many people are you going to train? How much is it going to cost for them
course, yeah.
to be paid for their skill? How, to buy the materials, and all of that. And then our view is, within the $100,000 we can have a couple of workshops to take the research further. Like, we've identified these elements, but to safeguard it, we've got to now share the knowledge. We've got to
Right,
pass
right.
it on. So this is the thinking, anyways. This is how we're approaching it. We don't have the perfect solution, but we're working with the community, and as we meet with people in the community, they give us ideas and they say, well, why don't we do this? And it's very organic. It's very
Okay.
organic, and again, I've got to reiterate,
And dynamic too.
this convention is about the community.
Yes.
It's not about an institution, it's about the community, and if it's not, people in the community have to keep it alive. So if they come forward to us and say, okay, Mobby, for example, the research was done in one particular area, but we recognize that there's like maybe 2 or 3 areas in St. Kitts where everybody goes to get their Mobby, or everyone's raving about Mobby from, this person, that person. It might be a workshop that we say, okay, we're gonna do a workshop for Mobby, and we recognize it's strong in these 3 neighborhoods. It might be 3 workshops where those 3 individuals within their community hold a workshop to teach people who are
Folks,
interested in
Mobby
how to make
making.
Mobby.
Yeah.
So it can take on many different forms. It's not for us to sit and dictate, but we want to work with the tradition bearers to figure out what's the best way, with actors or with the Masquerade, going into the schools to
That's
teach.
important. Yeah, I
It's
was gonna
not
come to that point.
it's not part of the curriculum, but as an institution, we're trying to help to make it something that's easily attainable. So if we have to write a program where we say to education, this is very, very important. If you allow our tradition bearers to come in at a particular time and teach the children this aspect of the art form, whether it be the history, the music, the practice,
Yeah.
and we put a budget together for that so that it can become a reality.
A reality. Let me remind the audience, you can call us at 465-2555 for your own fact and Candid, and make an input if you wish, ask a question, seek clarification, because we have less than 10 minutes left. So if you wish to make an input, now is the time to do so. Aline, was any information at all gleaned with respect to certain board games, which we know was started by our phobias, Wowry, Backgammon, and so on? I noticed that none of the areas there speak to that. Have you had any feedback at all on that with respect to?
Well, from our initial research, as I mentioned, these were the elements. And again, you have to understand the research we've done is a very limited time.
Right.
We did it in a period of a month, and it was actually during COVID.
During
We
COVID,
had to
yeah.
delay our aspects of it. And as I said, it's not exhaustive.
Right.
So that didn't turn up in our results.
But it very well read.
However, Department of Culture did some research prior to the project, and we, from things we found in the archives of the St. Christopher National Trust,
Yes.
previous projects, in Nevis as well, that was on the list.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was identified. So we
Interesting.
actually took that list and shared that with people who were training about ICH, but we said, go in your communities and tell us what you find. Don't just stick to this list.
Let's take this caller.
Yes.
Hello, caller.
Hello, Mr. Blake.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning to you and good morning, your guests.
Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah, information. We still have 4 local broom makers around.
Really?
Yeah, we have one in Molyneux. In Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
We have one in Trafalgar. And we have 2 at Buckley's Estate.
So where can one access them to actually get samples or buy their brooms? I haven't seen these people on the road or anywhere for a mighty long time.
Yeah, they're still around. Man. So
You
I'll
sure?
get the message to them.
All right, yeah.
That they can contact you, Miss Philip,
Yeah.
and then share what interest they have in teaching people how to make that broom.
But do you know if they have outlets for...
And also, since we are focusing on getting rid of these shopping plastic bags, once, when I was a small boy, there was a man in St. Johnson Village named Bobby Webb. He used to weave those baskets. He go up in the mountain and cut some some special wood, strips of wood. And they clean them up and he strip them down and plait these baskets so you could take them to the supermarket and put in your goods in it. But I haven't seen that in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone around who does it still.
Okay.
But it can be done and it would be helpful to the environment. Thanks for listening.
I still have a question. Do you know if any of these guys who do the brooms, do they have an outlet where they expose their handiwork, where they sell?
Well, yes, it is nationwide. They walk with the broom on their shoulder.
Really? Okay.
And they sell them. So when you see them, you contact them and you get the broom from them. But they do not have one stationary place
understood.
Where they stock the broom.
Have you seen that recently? Right now?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you to the caller as well, because the person who we interviewed concerning broom making does reside in Buckley's. So one of the 2 people who
We identified.
you mentioned, that's who we engaged in terms of interviewing.
And I used to see them regularly walking about with their brooms on their shoulders. But I have not seen that in a while. I just have not seen that. Maybe I'm not fortunate enough. But I'm going to proceed when I leave here.
They make more of the long broom now because they can't buy those broom. Those boom wash your roof.
Yeah, your ceiling, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And now, so the observation that the caller made, he was speaking about this basket weaving bag.
Yeah, basket weaving.
And he said he doesn't see it anymore. It's died, right? If he's not seeing it anymore, the individual who made it, whether he's making it or not, whether he's here in St. Kitts or not, whether he's passed on or not, these are the things that we are concerned about, right? And again, it's an excellent example of if the person doesn't continue, it dies. If it's something that is important, then we need to make an effort to safeguard it. And that means teaching somebody else how to make it, teaching younger generations to preserve it, but making sure the person, the tradition bearer, the person with the skill is a person who we engage and employ and remunerate for the skill, knowledge, and services to transfer.
Yes. Hello, caller.
Hello, good day.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good day. I'd like to thank Marlene for the leadership she had brought to the committee. I'm a part of the committee also. And I thank her for giving me the opportunity to be on some of the workshop and give me the opportunity to help the department.
We have trained with this information, with this knowledge. The intention is to call upon them when we need the work done. You understand? We've got like 60 people who have been trained how to use the equipment, do the research, do interview. Happy experience.
The callers are coming in now. Let's take this other one. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
There's a fella in Tabernacle that made those booms.
Oh.
So there's a guy in Tabernacle who makes booms.
The long boom, the same boom we talk about.
Okay, very good. Tabernacle.
Marco.
What's his name?
Marco.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You have another one. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Make it
Morning.
quick, please.
Yes, there's a gentleman here below me here. Call him Jawala. He does still do the broom, but he do the long ones too.
So where are these people selling their brooms? Where do they sell their brooms? They sell them from their homes.
Yeah?
He's selling from his home, or does he walk about selling?
He walk about selling, he'll go down the terminal or go uptown with them on his shoulder. There'll be a tour or something, people order them from him and he carry.
I'm hardly at home. I'm always on the road.
And then Jawala Rasta fella,
Okay.
he go fill him at the terminal.
What's his name?
Jawala.
Jawala. Okay.
And what area?
Yeah.
That's Boyd's.
Buckley soon, but you go around
Okay.
selling them today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
We're hearing from people in the public. Now, here's the thing.
Mhm.
And you keep asking the question, where the man selling the broom there?
Yeah.
We don't see him.
Yeah.
So we've always had this challenge with culture, right? Is that people view the talent and the skill that they have as a hobby. Some, not all.
Yeah.
We all have, and this is kind of a myth.
As opposed to
with
a
culture.
business enterprise.
Yes, this is the myth. I'm going to call it a myth. Because we have our 9 till 5, 8 till 4, Monday through Friday.
And we're fast running
and
out
we
of
work
time.
for somebody else
Yes.
to get paid. Not a problem. Not a big problem. And we have this hobby or this thing we do on the side. Right? The making the brooms, making jam, making mobby, selling, dancing masquerade, making craft, selling drums. And we never take it seriously that it's a business.
Yeah.
It is a business you're doing.
Right.
And they don't think about it that way. And people in the community tend to know. I can guarantee if you went in any community and you asked them who's making craft in the community, they would be able to tell you.
Let's take this last caller and then we have just, I think, 1 minute more to finish up.
Okay.
Hello, caller. Make it quick, please.
Hello, that's why they're making the long broom, them because to this high roof, they changing the house roof, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why most people are making them
Okay.
now. I have one here for years that they bought it from
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We got to go.
Yes.
We have Madeline, you have 30 seconds to finish up.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, if you look at the clock.
That's
We already
okay.
passed our time.
I feel blessed. Thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be able to share what we're doing at Department of Culture. If you want to find out more about it, contact us 467-1538 or 467-1539.
1539.
467-1396 is the RDU office. The first one is the secretary. You can also speak to the director, 467-1415, Mr. Troy Mills. We have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/St. Kitts and Nevis ICH Culture. We post everything on there. So tune into that Facebook and see. You can see the activities, the training
get
that we've
information.
done, and get information about
Madeline,
where we're going.
I'm going to have to have you back. I'm sorry. Like so many other of my guests, you have to come back and continue this discussion. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of Franklin Candid today, Friday, the end of the week. We will do it again on Monday, and we'll be wrapping it up for the year pretty soon after that. Have a great weekend. Do the right thing.